Welcome back to Moi Television. This is a very special program. The program mainly focuses on the earlier program that we had, the 10th commencement of Lead Star Christian University. And we have a special guest from Washington, D.C. of the United States of America, Dr. Jeff Clausen, the Vice President of the Council for Christian College and the University. So, Dr. Clausen, welcome to Ethiopia and welcome to join us on this special commencement program.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and my first trip to Ethiopia. So it's been a wonderful time. Thank you.
Yes. So it is truly an honor to have you here, especially as we reflect on such an inspirational week for the university community as well as the commencement program. Yeah. So, to say a few words, would you please introduce yourself and say a few words on what CCCU is doing internationally at this moment?
Yes, thank you. So Jeff Clausen, Vice President for Institutional Research and Learning at the Council for Christian Colleges and Universities that we often just refer to as the CCCU, or sometimes the Council. And the CCCU this year is actually celebrating its 50th year of existence and of work, which is wonderful. And we do a lot of work. It's grounded or founded in the U.S., but now really over the last probably decade, the international aspect of it has really grown. Mm-hmm. So we have in the neighborhood of about 38 institutions that we're connected with around the world, outside of North America, and that really looks like it wants to grow even more. So right now, the CCCU is really working to really try to elevate what those connections look like, and really elevate what it is of the flow between our member institutions and the CCCU. So you and I have had a lot of talks in the last couple of days of what that can look like. And so we are actually starting a commission for global engagement and bringing more voices from our international members into conversation on what the relationship is going to look like in the future. And so I think we're going to see a lot of growth and a lot of change and a lot of communication. And the CCCU also recognizes that it's not just the CCCU bringing our international members, such as Lead Star Christian University. We're not just providing for you, but you're bringing something really grand to us. And so it's a bi-directional relationship, and that's how we're trying to grow it and expand it right now on the international level.
Thanks so much. So that is really wonderful. And the other important point I want to raise is about the approach of our universities, especially the international members, the affiliates in various regions. They have their own approach in teachings.
Right.
Some are only focusing on the spiritual sides, but others are integrating faith with professions like leadership, community development, management, and so on.
Right.
And even some of the member institutions, as we were talking yesterday, they were also focusing on medicine.
Yes.
There are med schools because we were talking about them also. So when we come to Ethiopia, there are some critics that say this kind of universities, even though there are only a single Christian university in Ethiopia, others are seminaries and the Bible schools, and is a new experience in Ethiopia, integrating that kind of leadership, management, peace building, community development, and theology. Very, very new experience, even though it is there in the other world.
Right.
So how do you suggest on this one, and why is it vital for Christian universities to teach this practical discipline? How do you see it?
Yes, when you bring up a good point that actually also exists in the United States context, and that is some people especially outside of the Christian faith, think that the Christian university may not have the same level of teaching or level of ability that the secular school, which is just not true. And you are correct when it comes to faith integration. It has to be at a multidisciplinary level. And so one of the things the CCCU is doing is working with faculty to develop faculty to integrate faith with learning in their classroom in a discipline-specific way. Like you were just talking about, it could be medicine, it could be the hard sciences, it could be the social sciences, it could be leadership, and those kind of things. But I think to more directly answer your question,
in between, I also try to Google and see some of the member institutions, universities who are under CCCU.
Right.
Those they have even elementary and high schools.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
May you include that also, that
Yeah.
experience, because that is helpful for Ethiopian context as well.
Right. Well, and I think to answer your question more directly, what we know as people of the Christian faith is when you integrate faith, and like when we talk about leadership, when we talk about what peace looks like, what peace means, we would say we develop and send a caliber of student out that is different than what the secular university can produce. In the U.S., we have this conversation because the reason why we use the word integration for integration of faith and learning, because in the U.S. context, there was a disintegration, a removal of faith from the education process. And what we claim, and everybody, I think, in the Christian world of higher education understands that when you bring these things together, it becomes holistic. And
Yes.
we're the organizations that are training and teaching and growing and developing the whole person. And with the philosophy and the understanding that when that person goes out into their field, they're going to make an impact that a person that does not have faith integrated can't. They're not capable of doing it. And also things out of the Christian heart and the Christian mind, such as serving others. So, in the world that I live, it's very individualistic. People go to college or university in order to get an education and go have individual pursuits to make money, right? And we are producing a student. It's not that those things aren't important, but we are doing the work of producing a student, just like Lead Star Christian University is, of a student who will go out and look for ways to serve the world and impact the community around them. And we just think that that's a different heart. It's a different kind of education, and it's way more powerful than a disintegrated education.
Disintegrated,
Yeah.
of course, yes. That's very similar to Ethiopia. In Ethiopia also with the disintegration. And we are trying to integrate because we are producing not only leaders, not only managers, but we are producing leaders with biblical values,
Yes.
leaders with Christian ethics.
Yep.
When they are going out, they serve their community with the value they are getting from this university. So we are also doing that, but there are a lot of challenges that we are facing at this moment. And
Well, I think one of those things as we partner as we learn from one another on how to step through those challenges, such as, making sure that faculty are equipped and able to integrate faith in a really powerful way within their context of their teaching and the student experience. And one of the things that, in the U.S. context is a lot of our PhDs don't come from a Christian university. They come from a state or an R1, which has that disintegration. So they're people of faith, and they are worshipers of Christ. They're followers of Christ, but they through their training in the type of institution where they got their PhD or their graduate work, they weren't allowed to integrate those things, much less taught to. So we're working through our Center for Faith and Learning to build faculty development and content and training. And I'm really encouraged with the idea of how we can bring that from our Center for Faith and Learning into the context of Ethiopia and other contexts throughout the global side of the CCCU. Yeah, because I think everybody at some level is looking for that help. And you mentioned earlier, there are different regions in the world. And one thing I'm hearing is that, some of those regions have different needs. And so also as we work with our institutions, we try to pinpoint what those needs are and to bring help, communication, and good partnership and collaboration in the way that's specific to what our institutions need, depending on where in the world they are.
Yeah. What experience do you have, especially in integrating faith with professions, as we were talking? Of course, we have said a lot. Right. Still, I want to hear your experience in integrating the faith with professions and faith with academics, because some of our courses at Christian universities are mainly the theological part, like mission, biblical studies, systematic church history, and so on.
Right.
But others are like leadership. In the government universities, they are disintegrated.
Yes.
No one can study theology there or religion in government university. And we also think in Ethiopia that it is impossible to study leadership in Christian institutes. How do you see this one? And what are the drawbacks, the dark side of this kind of curriculum?
Yeah, and when you get into particular disciplines such as, let's say, math or statistics, people wonder, well, how do you integrate faith with math? Math is math.
Math and math.
Right, but the answer to that question is, well, why you do it. So we're asking and entering into this conversation with answering why questions, right? Why are you doing math? And of course, we're coming out of this theological context or understanding that everything is done for the glory of God at the end of the day, right? And so what I think my experience is, especially through the lens, not so much of experience of my own work, but learning about the integration of faith and learning, is what faculty need is the ability to integrate faith regardless of their discipline. So it's multidisciplinary, and to make sure that the big one in the U.S. is this. I'll say it this way. If you go into a classroom and let's say you're teaching some kind of advanced math course, and you do a devotion before class, that is a good thing, or you have prayer before class, that's a good thing. That is not the integration of faith and learning. So one of the things that we're really trying to work with is to make sure that we have practices that actually integrate, and not just Christian practices that seem like integration. Does that make sense?
Sure, yes.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the biggest things that we're working with, is trying to make sure, because what happens if you have bad classroom practices and you slap a Bible verse on it, you've just baptized a bad practice, right? And so we don't want to do that and call that faith integration. We want to make sure that true integration is happening across the disciplines. That's why we're building a lot of curriculum for faculty development in these areas through our Center for Faith and Learning.
Yeah, there are some institutions, member institutions, who are also teaching maths as your faith, because they try to see some of the universities, the member institutions who are teaching this kind of academics.
Yeah, so, and all kinds of hard sciences, physics and as you mentioned, the theological side of the house, it's more seamless, right? You're speaking of theology, God is the big picture, and we're trying to help institutions bring both of those together. So let's say the hard sciences, the math, the things the physics, the things that doesn't seem quite so seamless with theology, and bring those things together so that the Christian faith and theological voice overlaps with these disciplines, and leadership, and you name it, social sciences, philosophy, anything and everything can have faith integrated into it. And what we found is that we just need to be having that conversation on how that works best. And it's classroom practice, it's philosophy of classroom. It's the gamut that needs, it's just a constant conversation and constant work to do.
Okay. We see this kind of integration in the other world, in the other continents, even though it is very new in Ethiopia, and many people are asking questions how Christian universities teach leadership, how Christian universities teach community development, very new practice. Integration is very new practice in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
Let me ask you one question. How do you see integration in the African context? Do you see is it valuable? Do you see that way?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And, and one thing I understand too is like the U.S., we don't have this mindset that we're coming in to show you how to do things because your context. What we want to do is develop things so that we can overlap them into the Ethiopian context. And we've had the same conversation with some of our members from other African countries as well. And so the question for us, or the work for us, is to make sure that we provide, and you and I talked about this, some in the last few days, but we're providing information that you help us translate really in some sense into the Ethiopian context, because we're not trying to make Ethiopia another American state, right?
Sure.
We want to, so we respect that,
Sure.
and your context, and how can we partner to develop and help you develop that as we learn from you. So it's bi-directional, and that's very important to us.
So in the previous couples of days, we had one of the commencement of this year, even though the other will be in the western region of the country after a couple of weeks. How do you experience that commencement because you have a lot of experiences outside of this, because CCCU has 180 colleges and universities as members.
Yes.
That's very huge.
Yes.
And a very, very, very huge network across the world.
Yes.
It's my strong belief that you experienced different commencement programs across the continents. How did you experience this?
Well, great question. And, part of it is, I landed Thursday in Ethiopia. It's my first time here. So I'm, just taking in all of it, the sights, and, I've never been this far from home, to be honest. And so that was already an exciting thing. And then, Friday morning, we spent some time and came here, and then Saturday I'm at commencement. So it happened pretty quickly from the time I landed.
Sure.
I'm taking everything in. And so what was fun was just to be able to see it with fresh eyes in that way. But one thing I saw that was just, it was so worshipful. It was jovial, but I mean that in a good way, where people were just so happy. And there was a lot of joy in the moment, and you could sense it and feel it in the room, and the community. From my perspective, there just seems like there's a lot more connection between everybody. Like I said, I come from the U.S., which is a very individualistic society, right? And so it just had a feel to it. I don't know, and I'm still trying to. You sent me some pictures this morning, so it kind of jostled my memory of the day. But it was there was so much joy in it, and there was so much connection and community in it, and there was so much celebration in it. And I think, which was just the way it should be. And to have a small part in it for me was an absolute joy and honor. It was amazing.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's really great. So looking ahead, what potential do you see for Lead Star Christian University within the global higher education space? And what key areas would you encourage the leadership to prioritize in the future also?
Yes. Well, one thing's for sure is coming here and being here for a few days has completely, it just opened up not just my understanding, but my feeling of connection to Lead Star Christian University. And so, so it's changed things. You know what I mean? We've met before, but on a Zoom screen. So this is the first time we've been together in person. And so it really just changes the way I feel about it. And I think for us, and we've had this conversation, some of the immediate next step for us is to really dig into how this relationship grows and works. And as we've discussed, what can the CCCU bring to the table? Where does Lead Star Christian University need support? And so we're going to be spending some time. We've had some of those conversations already. I think we're going to have a few more of those conversations maybe today, and then to see what that's like. The other thing I think is immediate is to build more connection with our other member institutions. In the U.S. for sure, and of course we want to get you to come over and meet. We have a big presidents conference every year where the majority of the member presidents come together, and so I think one of the immediate things is to build relationship between you, your leadership, Lead Star Christian University in general, with other schools, U.S. and abroad, because that relationship brings that, I'll say, cross-pollination. Yes, right. You're bringing a lot of experience and a lot of wisdom and a lot of capability to the table that other member institutions can learn, and then they're bringing it too. And that's I think the greatest part of the network. There's a lot of things we do in the U.S. Of course, we're advocating for religious freedom. Globally, we are working to develop leaders in the CCCU, faculty development, and things like that, and growing and strengthening membership is a big goal of the CCCU. That's really our main three things: advocacy, leadership development, faculty development, and strengthening membership. And so the Lead Star fits right into that, both what you bring and what we bring. And I think we're just going to find how that relationship grows and builds. And I think as we do that, along with the Global Commission, the Global Engagement Commission, I think it's going to really change.
Yes,
how we're working globally, I think it's going to change, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah. There are different changes from the time even Lead Star Christian University become international affiliate of CCCU. And we believe in the future there are a lot of things that Lead Star can learn from CCCU because it has vast experience. It was working in the last 50 years. When compared to Lead Star Christian University, which became university in the last 3 years. Right. It became university in 2023 of Ethiopia in the month of May. So it's very, very infant when compared to the other universities across the world. So
well, and that's true. And there are our Christian members who were the founders of the CCCU. So when the CCCU was founded, it was a group of Christian colleges and universities. Some are pretty well known, such as Wheaton College.
Yes,
Gordon College. Calvin University, and a bunch of other ones that began it. So there's a lot of history there, and there's a lot of trial and error, and a lot of learning, and a lot of change. So I think there's a lot that the CCCU can bring within that network. And I mean, just in the U.S. alone, there are over 600,000 students in CCCU institutions just in the U.S. More than 40,000 faculty, that many more staff. And so the network is so massive. That's, I think, I think that's the strength of it and how this is going to go from here. And the other thing I'll say is that our president, David Hogue, has made it a priority to grow not just membership internationally, but how we're interacting and what the CCCU is providing to members internationally. Mm-hmm. And there are other international Christian higher education organizations that we're partnering with and coming together with, along with the new Global Engagement Commission that I think is going to make a huge impact, on how, and trips like this. I mean, really, as we communicate, we dream together, we pray together, we think what this looks like, and we keep moving. And that's one of the things I've heard many years ago, and I'll share this with you. When it comes to leadership, when it comes to development, is Somebody I served with on a board years ago said it this way: dream big, start small, keep moving. And that's kind of where we are, right? We have big dreams for what the international connection can look like, and we're starting where we are, and we're going to keep moving forward for the glory of God, for the sake of the work that we get to do together globally.
Yeah. So, even though this kind of experience is not new in the other world, especially in the United States and maybe Europe and other countries, something also came to my mind while you were talking, especially how to make our people be convinced with the philosophy of integration in our country, because they have something in mind that academy or profession is separate from a spiritual life,
right,
and the spiritual disciplines. This is what was in the idea or in the mind of our people, and they are amazed at us when we are telling them that we are teaching leadership. So how can we make them familiar with this kind of teaching? What advices do you have on this idea?
Well, it's, whether or not it goes across context, I don't know. But in the U.S., the academy over time, especially as evolutionary science and the sciences in the 19th century really gained a foothold on the mind. The United States college and university world deliberately separated those two things. People realized, as historian George Marsden pointed out in his work, that when there's disintegration of faith and learning, the university actually loses its soul. And so one of the things that we've learned, and the way we try to communicate it in our context, is that you can try to tell a student to leave their faith at home, but if faith is a part of who you are, you can't disintegrate yourself. And so to be whole and to be holistic, faith needs to be a part of the learning conversation, because it does impact the way you think and the way that you view information, right? It's our worldview. We're looking through a certain way. And there have been other scholars that come along basically to make the argument, this is a legitimate worldview. Christianity is a legitimate worldview. It's a legitimate way to view data and to think through the sciences. And so that makes it so what we're trying to do on a constant is to make sure people understand and convince them that the Christian university is probably the only institution that is, and I used this word earlier, doing holistic development of a person, right? Which means we are, as I mentioned, then sending graduates out that are trained in a different way. And I think, as you mentioned, leadership, that impacts leadership as much as anything else. And the way we impact the world.
Yes. That's the vision of Leader Christian University also. Producing global leaders and missionaries. Yeah. So those who are going to impact the world with the knowledge they acquire during their stay at Leader Christian University, and with the Christian ethics and values, the biblical values, they also get from this university. Right. They are going out with that and impacting the world, making a difference in their day-to-day lives.
Yeah, and that's ultimately the goal, right?
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing is when you have a Christian university, and we really do the work of this multidisciplinary integration of faith, right? Then every student, no matter what kind of vocation they're going into, the gospel's at the center. And I think that's how the world is impacted. And that's a lot of the vision of the same vision that Lead Star Christian University has been the vision of many Christian colleges and universities in the U.S. and other places in the world. And by the way, just to mention, to talk about the CCCU and kind of its foundation, the CCCU was founded by institutions that were liberal arts institutions, not just Bible colleges. Okay. So all the original consortium of schools, so it was called the Christian College Consortium initially. They were all liberal arts institutions that wanted to make sure that faith integrated across all of that, and that every student went out of there. They weren't necessarily just training pastors and missionaries and Christian school teachers. They were training and educating people across the gamut of disciplines. But every single one of them went out gospel-centered, wholly developed, and ready to impact the world. Yeah, with the gospel, right?
Yes.
And so when you're living it, even if you're not in a pulpit on Sunday preaching it, you're still living out the gospel, and the gospel then still makes an impact. And that's ultimately the goal.
Thank you so much, Dr. Clausen. So what charge or final message do you want to leave with Lead Star Christian University?
I think this, and this is true probably at every college and university in the world. When you get into the academic year and everybody has their head down and they're working hard and they're trying to do the business of higher education, you can feel isolated. Very, very easy to feel alone. And I think the most important thing is just as we talk about the sheer number of people that are doing this work, I think my biggest statement would be, you are never alone. We are working this work together, and you are supported, you are loved, and you are a big piece of who we are, and that really, really matters. We're in this work together, and I think that's the very most important thing. So keep going, stay connected, and we will partner to be successful, because the CCCU exists to make sure that Lead Star Christian University is successful in its mission. And so everybody that works for the Council for Christian Colleges and Universities, all of my colleagues in D.C., we have remote workers that work around the country in the U.S. We have our colleagues that are in Oxford. All of us get up every single day to make sure that we can do some work to make you successful in your mission. So I think that's my greatest word I can give you.
Praise the Lord. So, Dr. Jeff Clausen, Vice President of Council for Christian College and University, thank you for sharing your valuable insight with us today, and thank you very much. Our viewers, thank you for watching. Until next time, stay blessed. God bless you all.